everyone. Welcome to yet another episode at Biz Elements. Today we're going to talk about efficient processes in our startup series. As always, I'm here with my co-host Mohammed. Hi Mohammed.
Hi, how are you, Hasnain?
I'm well.
Good.
So, efficient processes.
Yes, very important. Very important. You know, having processes in a starting business is extremely vital because it optimizes productivity, reduces cost, and it actually improves customer satisfaction as well. Having said that, if we kind of jump on some of the advantages, having a clear and succinct processes for the business will allow staff to be able to relate immediately to what they need to do. And many a times you may have been in businesses where sometimes staff have to ask each other, well, you know, what's going on? Is this correct or is this wrong? That kind of cuts out a lot of the time wasting as well. So it increases productivity and reduces costs, obviously. Now, from a delivery of customer service, you can do that much quicker as well. When a customer phones, you know the processes. So that's quite important. And with the improved efficiency, the company just seems to kind of, you know, be on an even keel nicely and calmly, you know, things are working smoothly. So processes are very important.
I think I agree with regards to having succinct and defined processes, but I also think that from a value chain perspective and the USP perspective, I think that is encapsulated within the process. Because otherwise, how are you going to tell your employees who are working on the shop floor, so to speak, in a productized environment, that the job that you're doing, which is mundane, is actually adding this value down the line? And I think it's very important for the entrepreneur to not only recognize that, but to also communicate that to all their employees.
I think our advice to our new entrepreneurs would be to have maybe a booklet of standard procedures and processes that come into play, right?
Yeah, standard operating procedures.
And which we'll touch upon later on. But the important factor there is that it allows new employees that come in to onboard much quicker and get to being productive quicker. So that way they can see that, you know, after my shop floor positioning where I am, the next job is really important for the next guy. Now, I remember visiting a printing company many, many moons ago. And there it's really important to have processes because you have the machine operator on a 4-color machine, for instance, and his first process basically is to be able to match the colors, get the plate for the printing, ensure the first 10, 15 runs, he synchronizes the colors and that's all properly done. Again, a process. Now, if you don't teach that to a new machine guy coming in, that's going to be a huge issue because you're going to lose a lot of paper, you're going to lose time, you know, and printers are always on a short time frame.
And I also think that taking that example further,
right,
I think it's also important to show that person down the chain,
right,
at the beginning of the
right,
chain, what the end product looks like. Because maybe that printer was printing some wedding cards.
right.
And that's where, you know, you are the unique printer within your community or region or
right,
neighborhood that provides those bespoke wedding cards and no one else does. So you're absolutely right. I think people need to understand, especially
Correct.
employees,
Correct.
why, not only why you're doing something, but what the end goal is.
Well, it's strange you should say that because I had the privilege of actually working in one of these printing companies. And we used to produce prints for galleries. So you can imagine what those, the quality of that was, right? And so I used to work in the office as an estimator and production manager. But on this particular job, which was extremely, extremely important for the gallery, we all took care and wanted it to be absolutely perfect. So one of the chaps that used to do the printing on the full color printing, he actually saw it through. He had an assistant who went on the machine and carried on once it was set up. And then he went to the next part, which was normally when you print full color on paper, you have to wait for at least 10 to 15 minutes for it to dry. You can't touch the paper.
Oh, yeah, of course. Otherwise, it'll smudge.
Exactly. So half an hour later, he took the prints, went along to the guillotine machine. The guy showed him how it's cut, and then went to the book binding section where it was created with the final product being a book. And he looked at it and he thought, wow, this is like, wow, this is amazing. We did this, And I think that gives you the impetus to make sure that you don't make mistakes, you do it properly, and you do it on time.
Delighting the customer.
That's first time.
Every time.
Every time, yep, absolutely. So that was brilliant.
I think that's a great intro, Mohammed. So let's talk about some of the things that need to be done in order to ensure that the new startup has efficient processes, like process mapping.
Exactly. Now, you need to analyze the deficiencies you may have and identifying bottlenecks. And as a result of that, you're able to then start your process mapping very easily. I mean, there are tools for this as well, which I think we'll touch upon a bit later on, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then really, you need to visualize and document workflows, tasks, and decision points. That helps, again, to be able to have a complete process map. The other thing is, when you're doing processes, I don't think there should be one person doing all this. I think there should be involvement of stakeholders, i.e. the entrepreneurs and all the other directors or stakeholders of the shareholders.
Maybe the heads of departments?
And the staff as well, because that way they bring it together. And you never know. Somebody might pick up on a bottleneck that we haven't picked up on. And they'll say, no, I don't think this is the way to do it. So it's important. So it's a combined effort. And that's what's needed.
Right. And I think this is the right time now to actually bring in technology, because once you've done your process mapping, you can now, number one, tender for the right technology that you need in order to automate some of those.
Correct.
So case in point might be your CRM system, your accounting software. Depending on the type of business you're in, you might have a small manufacturing area, so you might need bespoke solutions for that. But I think it's very important to have the process mapped out before looking at technology.
Correct. And so to add to those points, I think maybe, and nowadays software is not really that expensive because, if you have it on a subs, it's not really that expensive. Software as a service, you can pay whatever you want to monthly for a number of users, and it's affordable. Yeah. So I would probably suggest that they have a good app for doing processes as well. Okay?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So what then happens is later on, if they need to change processes, it's not manual. It's just a couple of sections and away you go, right?
Yeah, because you're not architects unless you are opening an architecture firm.
Well, rather you build buildings as opposed to processes.
Right. So therefore, leverage technology. I mean,
exactly.
There's so much out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also think that don't be afraid to experiment, because if a particular software doesn't work, now is the time to go through it, find out that it's not the right fit for
Discard it.
your company,
Yep.
discard it,
Yep.
move on. Because as you mentioned, you are anyway taking it as a subscription, so it's not that much of a difficulty to swap it out.
No. And also with CRM systems, you can get CRM in a box, but I would suggest you look at CRM in a box because that's a cost-effective way of taking on CRM. But don't try and deploy it yourself, please. I think the best thing to do is actually find somebody who understands CRM properly and let them deploy it for you, help you deploy, because some of your processes may need to change.
Yes, because
Right.
what ends up happening is these are experts who have done it in 1,000 companies.
Yep.
They can bring best practice from what they've deployed in the past and let you know that, look, the way you're doing it may not be the best and most efficient way of doing it.
Yeah, because they roll out CRM systems all day long. Like we basically run our business. They actually roll out CRM systems.
And I think I want to also highlight one more point here, which is the fact that don't be lured in by best of breed, top of the line CRM systems. I'm not going to name any names, but we all know who we're talking about, because not only are they expensive, but you would use a fraction of the functionality that's available.
Correct.
So go for fit for purpose. I think that's the term. And then don't be afraid to try.
No, absolutely. And the other thing we should say is on the CRM side of things, don't forget a lot of the CRMs also have certain marketing activities which will be useful for you later on, like email marketing and gathering lists together. So it's not something you should just really say, oh, I don't think CRM is for us right now. Don't do that. Explore it. But the other thing we should say is also there may be some ERP systems which include CRM that may be useful as well.
Sure, I think there's a lot of options out there, but I think what the message is clear that don't shortcut on the systems, but make sure that you don't take a system that has so many features that all you're going to do is use a fraction of them.
Can I also add that we would be very happy to advise if customers ever needed any kind of advice?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they can connect with us through our social media channels.
Correct.
On YouTube. They can ping us if they need to.
We would be very happy to help.
Moving on. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Mohammed, is standard operating procedures.
Ah, my favorite topic.
So I know that process maps and processes are the flow, but I think if you could take a few minutes explaining what standard operating procedures are and how they differ from a process map.
Well, I'll put it in a nutshell, okay? So SOP, Standard Operating Procedures, provides existing and new employees with all the information about what they should be performing and how, in a nutshell, okay? And how to do their job properly. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. Now, it is different because business processes normally take you step by step through the processes of the business, okay? But these are standard operating procedures which have to be followed. These are mandatory. These are set in stone. They're not necessarily changeable unless there is a change within the infrastructure.
So in your printing press example, this would contain stuff like use paper with gauge Y, or make sure you print black last, or wait 15 minutes for the between prints of different colors.
Correct. Now, you see, those are procedures, okay? They're not necessarily business processes. And also things like, and these are really important in a production environment, by the way. In a production environment, you must have SOPs, because if you don't, you're going to confuse your staff thoroughly.
And I think it also, touching upon the legal side, I think it also helps with compliance. Because later on, if, God forbid, something happens or, you get audited, you have not only the standard operating procedures, but you can show them that, look, this is the quality that you follow. And I guess that's where the ISO 9001 certification.
Correct. That's exactly right. Yes. So that's where the certification comes from. But also to bear in mind, even though you're a small company, you may be a small printer or something, you must always remember that these procedures are important, because in the UK, I recall, because all my experience in printing was in the UK, we were only a company of 12 people. I mean, it wasn't massive. But as far as production was concerned with the machines, the unions were involved. And unless you have an SOP, the unions go absolutely berserk. Because if somebody's hurt, who's going to pay? So that's very important as well. So compliance is important. Excuse me.
And I think it's also important to say, like, I don't think we're saying that you should get compliance right from the get-go, but this is a stepping stone towards achieving that maybe, 18 months to 24 months down the line.
Correct. Well, one of the things that I was going to mention was that it does address safety concerns, but we've already talked about.
But I think safety needs to be compliant from day one.
Yes.
However, on the other side, like we mentioned, that quality rating of ISO 9001,
correct,
or whatever the current figures
it's actually 9001,
yeah,
for manufacturing.
There you go. So I'm sure there are other certifications.
Oh yes, there is plenty.
So in that sense, maybe that this would help the entrepreneur at least get on and well underway in their journey towards.
Correct, and also remember it gives consistency and quality as well. Because everyone's following that procedure. So that's important as well.
Whenever you mention consistency, you know what comes to my mind?
Go on.
McDonald's.
Does it?
Yes, because I've had a McDonald's burger in Dubai.
Right.
I've had one in London. I've had one in Hong Kong. I've had one in US. And I've had them in a few other places. And they're all the same.
How interesting.
The only difference is the taste. Because obviously some of the condiments that they use are locally grown.
Yes.
But apart from that, they taste the same. So if as a consumer or a customer, I'm looking for that consistent taste, I get that same taste anywhere in the world. And I think that's a testament to how McDonald's have perfected not only their business processes, but their SOPs.
So throughout the world, what they've done is they've had a transfer of knowledge, right, and procedures. So that way they keep it consistent. You agree with that?
I do, because I've witnessed it. So absolutely agree.
So I want to end SOP with a really important message. In a nutshell, it actually helps to integrate. It actually speeds up the integration of new employees really quickly. And that is such a superb advantage.
So we spoke about SOPs, we spoke about process maps. I guess the very next thing is, how do we iterate? Because being in a startup environment, it's all about iteration.
Well, Hussain, the most important thing here is that whatever you do in your business, you need to keep looking and managing and monitoring. The reason for that is because we want to keep our business nimble. We want to be able to change things quickly to our advantage. And we want to be able to enhance and foster that improvement quickly. So we have to monitor continuous improvement in this particular area as well. As soon as things change, we need to change our processes quickly. We need to be able to be nimble enough to say, okay, well, things have changed here in the production area. We have a brand new printing machine. The way we do things has changed. Hey, standard procedures have to be adapted or changed, Or we may find that we have and because of technology, there's so many upgrades now, right? And so even if you look at printing now, a lot of it is now digital. And as a result of that, if you get an upgrade, your procedures are gone. You have to change it. So there has to be continuous improvement and monitoring.
And I think it's also important where relevant, let's take the example of a restaurant.
Yep.
If you find that your business processes are deteriorating,
Hampering.
or let's put it this way, let's say you're becoming less efficient,
Right.
and it will probably manifest itself by time to table or from order to table.
Absolutely.
Right, is the time is increasing. So I think it's very important to not only monitor but set those KPIs up front. And it might be something as simple as what I mentioned. The time, you have a timestamp on the order ticket and you have a timestamp on when it's at the pass, so that you can monitor that from the time a ticket comes in till the time it's ready to be served. Am I improving, staying the same, or am I deteriorating? And then do that investigation to understand, hey, maybe it's here that we need to improve, or there. Maybe it's better prep. Maybe it's faster cooking. I mean, because you can't cook anything faster. Meat will take X number of minutes to cook. You can't force that. But maybe there's some other areas where you can improve.
You know, it's really strange you should say that, because you mentioned McDonald's earlier. I remember talking to one of the employees there, and I used to ask them, why does your fillet of fish take so long? It's really awful. You have to wait maybe 15, 20 minutes sometimes. And really, in this world of I need it now, you can't wait 15, 20 minutes. And so he explained that last year, apparently they had that. They had that as a note and a complaint. And they took it up and they said, right, every hour we have to have at least 20 fillet of fish ready to serve to customers in an hour. So they used to have that ready-made already. Would you believe it? So now I understand, if I go for fillet of fish, it's like, here you are, sir. And you think, whoa. Am I not going to wait 15 minutes?
But you got to balance that with the fact that it doesn't go bad.
You see, that's the other thing.
That's the other side of the coin,
Absolutely.
right? So you do as much prep as possible, but within, and this comes back to our topic of safety.
Safety. I was just about to say, we talked about safety and quality, right?
All right, Mohammed. So key takeaways from the episode today?
I think really the importance of having very clean, clear, and concise business processes for staff is really important, because it helps you in the long run, even in the short term. You know, it helps productivity, allows you to scale quickly, and obviously delight customers, because they get a great service in a very quick time span.
What about standard operating procedures, Mohammed?
Well, basically what happens is those are very important as well. They need to be set in stone, because it actually helps to integrate new employees really quickly so they can be productive for you. And obviously from a safety concern, it's superb. And also it controls quality as well, remember that. So these are important.
Any final points on this?
Yeah, final point is, don't forget, continuously monitor and improve, because that's the way forward.
Yeah. And I think it's those metrics or those key performance indicators. I know it's a wordy name, but it's nothing but measuring output.
Correct.
Like I gave the example of the order to plate. I think it's very important to measure these things, because what is not measured is not improved.
Correct.
It's as simple as that.
Correct. And we also talked about the technology side, right? Don't be frightened to look at software.
And avoid those big, shiny...
I can do everything.
Yes, I can do everything softwares, because you will not, at least in this stage, at the beginning stage of your business, use even a fraction of the functionality.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that, thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode here at Biz Elements. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you on the next one.